strain of the avian influenza virus that's even more fatal than previous strains is spreading quickly across Korea. Last week, authorities culled tens of thousands of chickens and ducks infected with the H5N6 virus at farms in Jeollanam-do and Chungcheongbuk-do provinces. And since Saturday, dozens of chickens and ducks in Gyeonggi-do and Chungcheongbuk-do provinces have actually died of the same virus. 4 duck farms in Chungcheongbuk-do province have reported suspected cases of the viral strain, and the regional government has confirmed the viral strain at 3 other farms nearby. Over 250,000 chickens and ducks at 10 farms within a 3-kilometre radius of the area are being killed to prevent the virus from spreading further.
People living with the Ebola virus might not even realize they're infected. That's according to a study published Tuesday, November 15th in the journal PLOS Neglected Tropical Diseases. Lead study author Dr. Jean Richardson focused on one village in Sierra Leone. 34 cases were officially reported out of about 800 residents in the village of Sukuru from November of 2014 to February of 2015. Additional blood tests revealed that out of the 187 people quarantined, 14 had been infected, and of those 14, 12 did not remember being sick at all. Richardson acknowledged that these additional cases are a small number compared to the more than 28,000 Ebola cases reported in West Africa by the World Health Organization from 2014 to 2016. But according to NPR, he said his research shows, quote, "There are a lot more episodes of human-to-human transmission than we thought."
After a years-long California drought, an unprecedented number of trees are dead up and down the coastal state. And that poses a huge threat to local communities. It's estimated 36 million trees have died since May, which would put the total number of dead trees in the state at more than 102 million. Those dried-up trees fuel wildfires. Big blazes have burned over 140,000 acres in 2016 alone. To fight the problem, officials are trying to use the trees for lumber or for fuel and energy plants. Authorities are predicting the die-off will last at least another couple of years.
Access to fresh water is going to become a big problem for a lot of people. The UN says by 2025, at least 1 in 5 people will deal with water scarcity. By 2050, the demand for fresh water will have increased by 50%. Meanwhile, we're already running out of groundwater reserves. Droughts all over the world mean getting water isn't easy for everyone.
Farmers in southern Madagascar are also bearing the brunt of a 3-year devastating drought. They're now in urgent need of aid before the next planting season.
The drought in southern Madagascar has left an estimated 1.4 million people food insecure. The lack of sufficient rains brought about significant declines in crop production earlier this year.
We suffer from the famine. Children and old people have no food. We need help to install water pumps, and even a small aid will help.
In the past, we had food to eat. Now, we have nothing to eat. There's no rain, so we can't plant. All the crops have disappeared. There's nothing.
Aisha Mohamedou anxiously waits as a health worker checks her 10-month-old daughter's weight. Fatima is among the estimated 75,000 children who are facing starvation here in northeastern Nigeria.
I feel bad, especially when I see other babies that are about her age. Some of them are already crawling or even walking. I'm desperate for help because she can't do any of those things.
In a health center in Maiduguri, Borno State, malnutrition cases are on the rise despite the clinic only having 23 beds. The United Nations says if nothing is done soon, thousands of children like Fatima are at risk of dying.
The only help I'm asking for is for food. I'm not asking for money. I just want her to be healthy.
On Saturday, in the 4th straight weekend of protest against embattled President Park Geun-hye, hundreds of thousands of demonstrators took to the streets of Seoul amid an ongoing political crisis in which she is alleged to have let an old friend meddle in state affairs. Park is resisting calls to step down, culminating in a protest last week that saw 1 million people march on Seoul by some estimates. The scandal has rocked Park's presidency and united Koreans in disapproval. Police said at least 155,000 people had packed into a central Seoul square early on Saturday evening for a candlelit rally. Organizers said the number was 500,000.
Glowing candles light up the darkness of the night as protesters cluster together. The streets are full of countless rows of seats as tens of thousands of people chant with one voice. It's an illustration of the rising level of discontent over the power abuse scandal involving President Park Geun-hye's confidant, Choi Soon-sil.
Public anger is intensifying as people, many here for a fourth straight Saturday, believe that their voices are not being heard by the powers that be.
Despite 2 televised public apologies by the president herself, Koreans of all ages, social classes, and political persuasions have come together yet again, calling on President Park to resign over her involvement in the scandal.
I believe that as students, we have duty to amplify the voice of the people as much as other age groups and organizations do in their own way.
It's a living history education for my 9-year-old daughter. I want her to take away from this, that every voice matters in a democratic nation.
Organizers say at least 500,000 people have gathered in central Seoul, and a total of over 750,000 nationwide. But police put the figure at just a quarter of that. The presidential office has said it recognizes the gravity of the mass demonstration held just a couple of blocks away from the top office, and some of the president's senior secretaries are on emergency duty to monitor the situation.
Media reports in India say at least 47 people, including bank employees, have died since a demonetization scheme was announced more than 10 days ago. Some reportedly died of shock, while others committed suicide. Millions continue to line up at banks every day to withdraw money or exchange the now worthless 500 and 1,000 rupee notes. Thousands of Malaysians march in the capital, Kuala Lumpur, demanding Prime Minister Najib Razak to resign and be charged over allegations of looting from the state fund 1MDB. The Yellow Shirt Bersih Alliance is a reformist group comprised of NGOs, civil society groups, and the opposition. Now, this is the second time in 15 months they have called for Najib to step down. Tensions flare as the rightist and pro-government red shirt movement threaten to confront them. On Friday, police arrested the leaders of both groups as well as other opposition politicians. Najib and 1MDB have denied any wrongdoing, with the Prime Minister denouncing Bersih as a deceitful scheme to unseat the government.
Thousands of Turks have held a protest rally against a draft bill that would allow men to avoid punishment over sexual abuse of underage girls. The protesters, including women and children, marched through the Kadıköy district in Istanbul to denounce the bill. They chanted slogans and held banners calling for an end to legitimizing sexual abuse and withdrawing the bill. According to the draft, sentencing in cases of sexual abuse committed to, quote, without force, threat, or trick will be indefinitely postponed if the perpetrator marries the victim. The Turkish government says the bill is aimed at remedying the situation of many men who were in jail. Critics say the plan will legitimize and even encourage child rape. The measure was approved in an initial parliamentary reading on Thursday. A second vote will be held on November the 22nd.
Protests by various hardline Muslim groups have been occurring almost daily in Jakarta. The protesters are demanding the arrest of incumbent Jakarta Governor Basuki Cahayapurnama, or popularly known by his Chinese name Ahok. Now, after weeks of investigation, the national police have named Ahok a suspect in a blasphemy case, a move that might jeopardize his efforts to be re-elected in the upcoming gubernatorial elections. The blasphemy charge could carry up to 5 years in prison, and the proceedings itself could take months. Until then, Ahok has been barred from leaving the country before the entire legal process is completed.
Umat Islam menuntut According to history, anybody who insults the Quran and the religion of Islam should be punished. Indonesia is working on tightening law enforcement in the country, so it is only fair to impose a penalty on Ahok since he committed a wrongdoing.
Back in September, Ahok sparked uproar among Muslim groups after he made a comment regarding a verse in the Quran. He suggested Muslim voters are deceived by religion, forcing them not to vote for a non-Muslim leader.
The Suda migrant camp on the island of Chios has been under attack. Amnesty International thinks right-wing extremists have thrown petrol bombs at the camp for 2 consecutive nights, as well as rocks and stones. Just some of what the UN says has been a week of violent incidents targeting the migrants. Finally, the unrest prompted hundreds of them to flee the camp overnight and seek shelter on public streets.
Bought 2 Molotov, and when you bought this, fire things, and people here is very dangerous. You come here in the restaurant because it's very hard, very bad inside.
Some 400 migrants have taken refuge on the island of Chios, 800 of them at the Suda camp, all waiting months for their asylum applications to be slowly processed. But frustrations are growing, and migrants are wondering whether their current refuge will remain a safe sanctuary.
Tension flared again at the Dakota Access Pipeline protests as officers used a water cannon and what appeared to be tear gas to push back protesters. The skirmishes started as demonstrators removed a burned-out truck on the backwater bridge. The Morton County Sheriff's Department estimates 400 protesters wanted to cross the bridge on State Highway 1806. The 1,200-mile four-state pipeline is being built to carry oil from western North Dakota to Illinois. The Standing Rock Sioux and the tribe's allies have protested the construction of the almost $4 billion pipeline for months. They fear a leak could contaminate their drinking water and that construction will damage sacred sites.
Activists in Jerusalem hung a gay pride rainbow flag on the offices of the chief rabbinate, and that was in response to highly offensive comments made by the city's top Sephardic rabbi.
I call it a cult. It's a cult of abominations. It's obvious. It's an abomination. The Torah says it's punishable by death. It is in the first rank of severe offences.
This is not the first time that this rabbi, who is the chief rabbi of Jerusalem, has courted controversy. Last year, he declined to attend a memorial service for a teenager who was stabbed to death by an ultra-Orthodox zealot during last year's gay pride parade in Jerusalem. And at the time, he said that his refusal was because her family had refused to read aloud a condemnation of homosexuality that he had included in a condolence letter that he sent to them. Now, naturally, his latest comments have evoked reaction from all sectors of Israeli society. There are several politicians who've spoken out against him. Yesterday, Sunday, gay rights activists hung a gay pride flag, as you mentioned, outside the offices of the Jerusalem Chief Rabbinate, and they later protested in front of the building. A complaint has also been filed with the Israeli police, saying that his comments constitute incitement to bigotry, and there've also been calls for him to retract what he said. So on the whole, he hasn't received much support, but it is worth mentioning that Israel's online right-wing media outlet, Arutz Sheva, has run opinion pieces supporting the rabbi.
On Monday, Pope Francis extended the power to forgive abortion to all Roman Catholic priests. Forgiving abortions was a right previously reserved for bishops or special confessors. Francis said he wanted to restate as firmly as he could that abortion is a grave sin since it puts an end to an innocent life. But there is no sin that God's mercy cannot reach and wipe away when it finds a repentant heart seeking to be reconciled with God. Pope Francis suggested this would last for at least the rest of his papacy.
one village in Sierra Leone. 34 cases were officially reported out of about 800 residents in the village of Sukuru from November of 2014 to February of 2015. Additional blood tests revealed that out of the 187 people quarantined, 14 had been infected, and of those 14, 12 did not remember being sick at all. Richardson acknowledged
4 duck farms in Chungcheongbuk-do province have reported suspected cases of the viral strain, and the regional government has confirmed the viral strain at 3 other farms nearby. Over 250,000 chickens and ducks at 10 farms within a 3-kilometer radius of the area are being killed, particularly across Korea. Last week, authorities culled tens of thousands of chickens and ducks infected with the H5N6 virus at farms in Jeollanam-do and Chungcheongbuk-do provinces. And since Saturday, dozens of chickens and ducks in Gyeonggi-do and Chungcheongbuk-do provinces have actually died of the same virus. A strain of the avian influenza virus that's even more fatal than previous strains is spreading to prevent the virus from spreading further.
people living with the Ebola virus might not even realize they're infected. That's according to a study published Tuesday, November 15th in the journal PLOS Neglected Tropical Diseases. Lead study author Dr. Jean Richardson focused on